Okay, welcome everyone. I'm just going to wait a moment here. Welcome to those of you on YouTube and those of you that are joining me in the Zoom room today. Welcome to the Friday webinar. Just going to take a second here to get everything going and make sure everything's broadcasting correctly. And it looks like it is. So welcome to the Friday webinar. Thanks for joining me again today on this series as we look through the Mosaics repertoire. You'll see I've got two books up here today. I've got a hard copy of grade 3 yesterday, and this is going to be released pretty soon. I'd say within a few days, it should be ready for sale. So I would say starting on Monday or Tuesday next week, as late as Friday, check the andrewharbridge.com website as well as the Deborah Wanless site if you're looking for music from her as well. We expect to have pre-orders ready and have these books ready soon. We're just going to wait a little bit because we found a bunch of things we wanted to change now that we see the hard copy. We're trying to get the font size right and just clean up a few little things. And then this one's going to be ready to go. So I'll be presenting this to you probably in 3 weeks' time, or even 2 weeks' time at the beginning of November, if we're lucky. And today is all about the prep book, which has been available for a good 6 weeks now. Some of you may have it already, and some of you are probably wondering, hey, what's inside it? I want to see what's inside it first before I purchase it. That's what today's all about. I'm going to play it for you. There's 32 or 33 pieces here. I've lost count. And I'm going to try and play through them all. They're short. Some of them are short and sweet. I won't have a lot to say about them compared to what I've done with grades 1 and 2 so far, but I just want to give you a sneak peek at what's in there in case you're wanting to watch. A couple of updates from CC. Our convocation and awards ceremony this year, we're doing an online event, and we've decided that's going to happen, and I'm going to announce this for the first time right now, on Saturday, November 23rd. At 1 p.m. Eastern time. I'm going to broadcast it here from the CCTV studio. We're hoping to have some live performances by award winners from across the country, and we're going to have chats with different examiners and teachers as well. And so hopefully you'll join us for that. It'll be about an hour and a half long event there where we'll talk about the award winners and try and have an online celebration this year in lieu of an in-person one, which went very well last year. But we've just decided for all the effort that it takes to put that on, and how difficult it is for people to join us live these days, it's much easier. I think every second year we're going to try and hold it online, and then every other year we'll go back to the in-person format. Those of you that are looking for medal winners and scholarship award winners, we're just finishing compiling those lists today, and we should be getting letters out to teachers and students that have won awards starting on Monday. So look for that in your mailboxes, those of you that are expecting that kind of thing or wondering if your student has won an award this year. With Conservatory Canada, we do spend a lot of money in scholarships from our endowed funds, and we do take the time to award a lot of medals, the highest mark in each province for each discipline at each grade level, classical and contemporary idiom streams, all instruments. So there are a lot of medals to award, including theory and history. We're going to be acknowledging our graduates as well that have received the ACCM Associate Diploma in Performers and Teachers. So lots to do in November, and we hope you can join us for that celebration later. And we'll have more information in your inboxes in the next couple of weeks regarding that. Next week's webinar on Friday, October 25th, we're going to have our first guest of the year. We're going to have Dr. Erin Parks join us from Ottawa, who's director and founder of the Lotus Center in Ottawa. And what she's put together over the last 10 years or more now is creating a specialty for herself, it seems, and we'll learn more when we talk to her, but I'm wondering if there ever is a person that specializes in teaching music as we do as studio teachers with people that are neurodivergent or autistic. This is the person. She's very familiar with all of the research, and we look forward to having her next Friday here at 12 noon Eastern time. I hope you can join me. It should be a really good one for those of you that are curious, not only how to handle the autistic child or the autistic student, but those that just have little quirks or things that are a little bit different, or what we say exceptionalities. And I think this webinar is going to be very interesting, and we're probably going to create a series out of it and having her back multiple times over the coming months. So please join me for that. Those of you that are here in Zoom, what I can actually do, I believe, I'm going to throw the link to that in the chat box if you want to register for it. There's the link to register, so that's nice and handy for you there. So this is about pre-grade 1. This kind of music for our prep book, I call it often the pre-grade 1 book. It's actually called the preparatory book, or the prep book for short, is music that's for those students that's not quite yet at a grade 1 level. And I know for years, as I was teaching beginners and getting them into that grade 1 level, there always seemed to be a bit of a gap between beginner methods I was using and getting them to fully reading grade one. I've been able to bridge that gap quite nicely now with the method that I use, which incorporates different methods. And I've mentioned before, I spend a long time, usually about 2 to 3 years at least with students before I get them to the grade one level. This book can be really useful because it can give students an idea of how to get out of these hand positions and how to meander through the score a little bit easier and navigate around the keyboard without a specific hand position and still watching the fingering and that kind of thing. So 33 pieces gives us a lot of variety, and you'll hear the styles. Most of them are more contemporary driven, although there are some classical things here as well that I think students are like. There's sort of a fun edge to these, playful in some ways, but different ways to show students the keyboard. I know those of you, I recognize a lot of names here with me today in the Zoom room that are MYC teachers, Music for Young Children teachers. I think you're going to be very interested in this book. And I look forward to using it with some of my students as well. Especially, I have a number of students these days that I'm teaching proficiency to through the university. And so I'm bringing a lot of them from square one through an adult beginner method. And I'm looking forward to using this book actually to get them as a bridge into that grade one level, because those beginner methods go a little too quick at times. So I'm looking forward to using that as well. So I'm going to dive into the music here. I'm going to go a little bit of rapid fire today. I'm not going to talk too much about each of the pieces because I think each speaks for itself. The pedagogical value, I think, is there, and we can certainly talk about that. And I know a lot of you will teach that way at this level. But most of you, would suspect, at this level, we're just happy to get the notes and the rhythm and get them navigating the keyboard and having fun. That's sort of what it's all about these days, it seems. And for those of you that are looking for something more from your students, you'll see that in the score as well. Lots of articulation, lots of opportunities for dynamics and shaping phrases and that kind of thing, managing pulse. But I'll leave that to you today. I'm not going to comment too much on it, but I will try and play the scores in a creative way so that you can get an idea of what's possible. This would also good, it makes me think this would also go good with our grade one or pre-grade one exam. And maybe I'll just share my screen for a moment here, if you'll indulge me. Here's our website. For those that aren't familiar with our pre-grade one exam, not a lot of you are using it. But if you go to the Learning tab, go down to pre-grade one. This is where you find the syllabus for pre-grade one piano. And what it is simply is students play 3 pieces. We say 2 longer pieces and 1 shorter piece, depending on the beginner method we're using. We're looking at something that's, 1 step below grade 1, and this pre-grade 1 book, any of the pieces in there would be absolutely suitable for this. And then students have to do a few scales and triads, very simple, a little easier than grade 1, only 1 octave scales, some rhythm and note identification for sight reading, so they don't actually have to play a passage, they have to identify notes. And 2 simple ear tests, clapping back a simple rhythm, and then identifying major and minor triads. You can see all of it written out here. Quite simple. You can see the scales and triads. There isn't much. That gives you an example of the sight reading that's required and the ear training examples. But the big component of this is, I think the exam will last about 7 minutes, and then there's 8 minutes left where we can have a mini lesson with the examiner. That's a built-in part of this exam where the family can be in the room the whole time as well as the teacher. They can gently assist the student if they need a hand with something, but it's a great way to give students the idea of what goes on behind the scenes of the exam, gives the family an introduction to the exam and the process behind it, and involves them right through the whole thing. It's only 15 minutes long, but again, any of the music here I think would be really suitable from this level. So let's dive in and take a look. Table of contents. Again, it's 32 or 33 pieces here. I'm going to play through them all slowly for you so you can see what's there. Let me just get this into full screen mode for you so you can follow along the scores today. Sometimes there's 2 pages. I'll just show you the first page and then I'll scroll through later so you can see what's there. But we're going to start here with A Jazzy Little March. This is by Nathaniel Dett, American composer who had strong Canadian ties, arranged by Deborah Wanless. And remember to turn on original sound, otherwise you won't hear me. If anyone in the Zoom room here is having trouble hearing my audio, please let me know in the chat box right away if you can. Jazzy little marks, lots of syncopation. You can try and get students to count that out with counting written in. I prefer at this level not to do that. I just play and let them imitate the rhythm as long as they can feel the pulse. Cheerful Youth, nice classical piece here, very simple in 3/8 time. You can see both hands working together, but not so much in the left hand to worry about. Next I have a little serenade here by Pauline Viraudot. This is arranged by Sandra Mogensen, who has 2 collections of books in the Wanless catalog where she's highlighting women composers. So this is a newer piece, first published by Wanless and arranged by Sandra Mogensen, and we were able to feature this piece here thanks to her. Quite tricky rhythmically, really. It would be difficult, I think, for a lot of students to handle this, and we debated putting it in the book, but the notes are sparse enough, and I think it's a really good counting exercise for students in 6/8 time. And then there's some hemiola there in the middle, shifting accents, long notes that you have to count out. Be a nice challenge for students without worrying about too many notes. Christopher Norton, 4x4. This comes from his Prep Connections book, which many of us probably haven't seen, but was created not that long ago in 2020. It's a nice driving rock sound. Certainly doesn't have to go that fast. I'm just playing it quickly because it is a rock tune. I think some students would be able to get that going due to the simplicity of the left hand. Speaking of simplicity in the left hand, this one's quite simple. It's just a good triad exercise for students in getting the idea of Dorian mode sound in their mind, which is quite common in contemporary music for them. And this is the first of 3 in the book that are published by Music for Young Children. And so we have 3 MYC pieces here. And I'll try and highlight those so you know that they come from their library. Next, a little piece by The Seashore by Nicholas Fairbank. This one's a little bit difficult perhaps for the prep book. It could easily go into grade 1 if students played this on a level 1 digital badge. That would be fine. But it's one of 2 pieces, I believe, that are in D major, which can be a little bit challenging. But we thought this would be a good one of the challenge pieces in the prep album for those students to really test their readiness. By The Seashore, nice and legato. You can see the hands don't move very far, although they are covering 6 keys in some cases there. Even 7 keys in the right hand, a little octave jump. Just a bit too easy for grade 1, and that's why we find it here in grade 2. Anyone in the Zoom room, if you have questions about anything I'm playing or about the pieces or the technique involved, feel free to throw your questions in the chat box. I'll see them here and I'll stop and we can answer as we go. This one is a nice companion piece to the previous piece, The Country Boy, also by Christopher Norton. Nice and legato, very quiet, only in G major. folk song. This was arranged by Paul Sheftel. It's a traditional Czech tune, we believe. It's a little bit tricky. It can go quick. Again, it's one of the other ones in D major, but the left hand doesn't move much, with these interesting offbeat accents in the left hand, which is indicative of contemporary or folk music in general. And an octave hand, or hands moving up an octave, which gets them moving around and navigating the keyboard. I'll probably play this a little bit quicker than most students would, but it'll give you an idea of the character and the style. Next, the piece Dancing in the Rain. This is by Sheila Tyrrell. It's a little 6/8 piece. Nice lilting piece there. And then next, a piece by Ignatius Sancho, whom we featured. George Lythurst, the arranger here, featured Ignatius Sancho in our webinar last year. You might want to check that out. Lady Mary Montagus reel. It's a nice imitation here of a fiddle reel, perhaps from Great Britain. It can go quite quick, lots of articulation, but the left hand's nice and simple. The repeats would be welcome there, even on an exam, because it's so short. Another piece by George here, arranged, a French folk tune that we all know. Good for the hands navigating and trying to jump an octave in time. Probably play that as a round with my students on a second piano, so that I'm starting 2 or 4 bars later. I'm also thinking about echoes. The dynamics aren't really marked that way, but the hands go an octave higher. It's nice to play it quieter too. Students could certainly add that into the mix here if they were comfortable. On the next page, 2 pieces, Happy Birthday to You, and then Play Me the Blues. Happy Birthday, arranged by Andrew Harbridge, quite straightforward, and then one of his nice blues pieces here for students. It's a little more difficult, but nice at the pre-grade 1 level. So 2 quick, easy ones there. Happy Birthday would be nice for students to have. You never know, I'm sure in any given month they would have a reason to play it at home. Here's an old English folk tune that we all probably recognize. Neat the way the hands can cross and take over from each other. This is arranged by George. Hickory Dickory Dock. Straightforward. And then, arranged by Lee Evans, we have 2 in a row here. This Old Man, an old folk tune, with a duet part on the bottom. I'll play it through as written once, and then I'll see if I can give you a flavor for how the secondo goes by playing some of the secondo in the second time. I think my brain feels good enough to try that today. teacher part for the secondo. Just to give you an idea, sometimes there's little jazzy harmonies in there in these arrangements that he's put together. And then London Bridge, the same kind of thing here. And this one has two options. Or the second option. An idea of how those duets might sound if you were to play them with a student together. Evening Song. You'll have seen in grade 1 and 2 we had several pieces by the BC composer Ernst Schneider. They often, it's interesting, are 3/4 time. We've chosen some of his slow ones. He writes these really nice slow legato movements here, and this is one of those that would be perfect here for pre-grade 1. And then next, a piece by Mel Bonis, arranged by Andrew. This is one of her madrigals. A little bit shorter than the original. And then in a piece arranged by George by Marin Marais. And this comes from an opera. I believe I played this back in June when we first talked about mosaics, and I highlighted this piece. Nice aggressive 6/8. I'll probably again play it a little quicker than most students would try it. There's the second page up at the top there. And then at the bottom, a piece by Elena Yasina, and this is edited by Sandra Mogensen as part of her women's series. Now, a really popular melody by Mozart. This is arranged by Andrew. We'll all know this tune from one of his piano sonatas. Nicely written here in C major. A good piece to teach the dotted quarter note, eighth note rhythm. And then another little piece by Ernst Schneider, My Little Copycat, the right hand and the left hand playing back and forth against each other. This is kind of in an invention style. We see inventions in some of the conservatory books from time to time. I know Conservatory Canada, we sort of abandoned that title a long time ago. But this would fit that sort of mold, I think, for those of you that have seen those. And then we have a lullaby here by Daniel Turk. nice simple classical piece in F major, one of the only pieces in F major with the B flat to navigate in the book. And then a pentatonic tune. This is nice, it's all on black keys. Maybe a little difficult for students to read at first, but if we get their hand position spread out a little bit, they'll find those black keys and they'll be able to judge where the next key is based on the holes in between the 2s and 3s. Nice and simple. And then we have our second piece here from MYC by the composer Terry Myers. It's called Valentine. It has a very common progression in the left hand that students will like to play, and really good workout for their left hand in terms of getting these chords down. And then another piece by Mel Bonis. This one's called Prière. Really nice twists and turns and harmonies in this one. And then another pentatonic black key piece, the Queen of Siam, imitating a cat walking around the keyboard. Very creative here from Deborah Wanless. Tempting to clear the pedal off in there, but I'm refraining from that, trying to hold it down all the way through just to let those resonances work through. And this is a really neat piece, Simple Waltz here by David Cote, 2 pages long. Maybe what I'll do is I'll show the second page so you can see that coming up and how it ends. The first page isn't as detailed. Quite charming, really. And then a couple of shorter pieces, Rock This Town by Andrew Harbridge, and then All Beginnings Are Difficult. 2 really opposite pieces here in terms of style, one very contemporary, and then back to the classical period. From time to time people ask, what about a fingering for that C blues scale? It can be so clumsy for a grade 1 student, and this is even pre-grade 1. And so you can see I've used a fingering there in bar 5 in the right hand that we are trying to advocate more for, because it's nice just to get students to keep their thumb on the white key and then finger 3 on those black keys, and then they can use their arm to waggle around the distances between those keys a lot easier than getting the weaker fingers involved. So have a look at that when you see it. And then all beginnings are difficult. Doesn't get too much easier than that, despite the title. And then Easter Egg Boogie, this is another in this series from MYC, and this is by one of our retired examiners, Roxanne McGahey. That's all the music. That felt fast for me. But anyway, that gives you an idea of everything in the book here, what the music sounds like, what the level of difficulty is. We do have composer bios here at the back as well, even in the pre-grade 1 book. So you can see what that looks like. And that's the end of the book really there. If anyone here has any questions about that, feel free to throw them in the chat box for me there. This is sort of a shorter session today. And it was nice, because the pieces are so short, it was nice to be able just to play through them all for you instead of dividing into group 1, group 2, which I will do for grade 3 starting in 2 weeks' time. I think we've got that on the schedule now. Again, next Friday we're going to have Dr. Aaron Parks come on and we're going to talk about teaching neurodivergent students. And then the week after that I'm going to dive into grade 3 repertoire, likely with just the group 1 stuff first, Baroque classical music, and then I'll divide it up and play through the contemporary selections in a following week. And so comments here I'm seeing in the chat box, surprised by how much 6/8 time there is in pre-grade 1. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? 6/8 pieces are just so fun, and I know myself, I seek them out sometimes for students, and I'm playing some things through for them so that they can choose, and they often will gravitate to that rhythm. So we're happy to feature that here. You know, mathematically it seems quite complicated for them, but in their method books they probably, or whatever you're using to get to grade 1, they've probably encountered this at some point. And really it's just almost feeling like 3/4 a little bit quicker with 2 3/4 bars sandwiched together. I myself don't get caught up too much in the math with that with the students, especially at the younger levels, until they're really willing to understand it. I test them out to see how much they will understand the math and the counting, but I try to do more by ear when they're younger and introduce the math later on, and this is probably a good time to do it with some of those pieces. So yes, lots of 6/8. Any other questions or comments there? I think what I'm going to do here now, I appreciate you guys all coming and listening today, and those of you watching here after the fact, thanks for checking out our Mosaic series. Again, you can order these books from andrewharbridge.com or Wanless Music if you have other books like the Keyboard Harmony books or our theory or the Total Theory books that you're wanting to order from her. It's good, just it's easy enough to throw these on from either website. They all come from the same place, controlled by Andrew Harbridge and his daughter Carissa now, and they'll ship these out to you. They take a little bit of a cut on the shipping costs. They eat some of that so that they can get those books to you. We understand the Long McQuaid stores have them now, and certain stores are seeing those in stock. If you're not, let me know. It'd be nice to know exactly what's happening out there as we get these books rolled out. And like I said, right now, Prep grade 1 and grade 2 are available and have been for a while. And this grade 3 book should be available in the coming days. So start having a look next week on those websites, and we should see that there. And then we focus our attention and we're turning that to grade 4 so that we can launch grade 4 here well before Christmas too. So thanks everyone for joining me. I'm going